Hello again, fight fans. Welcome to episode number 222 of the Neutral Corner Boxing Podcast. I am your host, Michael Montero, and today we're going to be joined by special guest Ken Rideout of the Fight with Teddy Atlas podcast. That's going to be a lot of fun. And it's 18 years to the day. HBO Boxing After Dark, Arturo Gatti, Gatti-Ward, and the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Man, it's been 18 years to the day of that outstanding fight. The ninth round of that fight, one of the best rounds you're ever going to see in boxing. Some have called it the greatest round in the history of boxing. I don't know if I go quite that far, but easily the greatest round of boxing, I think, this century. You can absolutely make that argument. But we've had, Hagler Hearns. We've had some great rounds, you know what I'm saying? But that ninth round, oh my God. I'm all man. I'm an alpha male. But I'll admit, I've had tears in my eyes watching that round before. I'll fully admit it, happily admit it. I don't give a damn if you call me soft. I will fully, openly admit that round has definitely had me tearing up before because there was just so much humanity encapsulated in that 3 minutes. But guys, before I talk about that, make sure that you go ahead and like the video here on YouTube. Make sure that you spread the word about the podcast. Make sure that you share, post, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us. Leave a rating and a review if you can. That helps me out tremendously. The YouTube people do not want guys like me to continue to grow because they have invested all their money in the corporate entities of media. That's not, that includes the fight media, okay? It's all media, but that includes the fight media, obviously. So they want to get guys like me out of there. The only way we can fight them is if you guys subscribe and you guys share the videos and you get it out there. You get your other boxing peeps to subscribe as well. That's how we fight back. Because trust me, they changed those algorithms to hook up their corporate homies. They're all exchanging money behind the scenes, taking care of each other. Little guys like me, they don't want me rising. So let's fight back. Subscribe, share, get it out there. That's not just here on YouTube. That's the audio podcast as well, guys. It's quarantine. It's crazy. I've got all kinds of stuff going on. I'm still trying to put out content for you guys. I'm not trying to do the same old tired shit of just pound for pound list and mythical matchups. I'm trying to give you guys some different stuff. We've had all sorts of different guests from different parts of the boxing world. Everyone from fighters themselves, publicists, other journalists, everybody, blow-by-blow announcers, and today we're going to have Ken Rideout on. He does the podcast with Teddy Atlas. Interesting dude, really interesting dude, and he's from Massachusetts, the same part of the world Gatti-Ward's from. So it's only fitting he be on the show today on the 18th anniversary of the first fight between Arturo Gatti and Gatti-Ward. So let's talk about that a little bit, guys. And by the way, if you got any questions for Ken or myself, get him ready, and I'm sure he'd be more than willing to take calls later on. We could do that, or just get him on here on the chat. Sometimes, guys, there's a lot of moving parts, and I can't see everything, but I'll tell you right here, I'm at the screen over here to my right. When that super chat pops up, boop, it does get my attention. Your question will get on the show, okay? So I just want to put that out there. Okay, let's go. Oh, by the way, quick housekeeping item. No TNC next Monday. So I have family coming to town this weekend helping me do some work on the house. I need some more muscle. So I got some family coming here to visit to help me do some things. They're going to be around for Memorial Day. So there will be no show next Monday. Okay, I just want to let you guys know. But we'll be back the following Monday. And of course, in between now and then, there's probably going to be a rant video or two. So just wanted to let you guys know. No show next Monday, the 25th. Okay, 18 years ago today, HBO Boxing After Dark, Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, about 100 miles south of Ward's hometown. So it was basically a hometown fight for him. Not exactly, but in terms of proximity, it was more of a hometown fight for Gatti-Ward. And if you watch that fight and the crowd reaction and everything, you see that. It was pretty much a hometown fight for him. Not that Gotti didn't have fans there, but a lot of people thought that may have been Gatti-Ward's last fight. I remember going into that fight, he told everybody, if I lose this fight, I'm retiring. And as it turns out, after the three-fight series with Gotti, Ward did retire. So he was at the very end of his career. So is Gatti in actuality. I'll talk more about that in a second. But so the fight ends up being Fight of the Year, not just Ring Magazine, but I think the BWAA, pretty much every platform had that as Fight of the Year, every single publication, and just about everybody had round 9 as the round of the year. Some of you younger guys, unfortunately, didn't get to see it live. You've probably seen it on YouTube a bunch of times. You've seen guys like me tweeting out videos and stuff like that over the years. But you guys who are, I would say, 30 or older, you guys probably remember where you were when that fight happened. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there saw it live. I'd love to hear some of your comments. Get in the chat here, or just drop a comment if you watch this video later on, whatever it is. Where were you? Were you you're just at home by yourself? Were you with some friends? Were you at a house party with family members? Where were you when you saw that fight live? Do you remember where you were? It was that kind of an event. I remember as that fight was going on, guys, this is pre-Twitter, okay? It is this millennium, this century, but it's pre-Twitter. And, oh, by the way, I see Pietro on the chat. Pietro, I'm rocking the Arturo Gatti tee. I gotta rock this from PS Shirts because Arturo Gatti, it's Arturo Gatti Micky Ward Day. You gotta rock this, right? So I'm rocking your tee, brother. But during that fight, people actually picked up the phone and started calling people. I remember a couple of my friends called me during the fight. They were like, dude, are you seeing this shit? Are you seeing this? And it was, yeah, I'm watching, dude. Shut up. He'd hang up the phone. Then like 2 minutes later, another friend called. Are you seeing this shit? Yes. Let me watch it. Click. Just hang up the phone. There was like 2 or 3 of those during the fight because, it was text too. But this was before Twitter, where you're watching fights on Twitter and everyone's like, yo, are you seeing this shit? Basically, that's what people do now on Twitter. But back in the day, it used to be pick up the phone, call one of your boys, or text them if you had started texting by then. But it was that kind of an event that it was happening live. And you guys also got to remember, this is before any streaming platforms. It was HBO and Showtime. Those were the two kings of boxing in the United States. And in that era, I would say HBO was still seen as the king. Now, later on, Showtime would have times where they were the top dog. Right? They were doing better work than HBO. But in that time, HBO was truly the king. And Arturo Gatti had really become a staple of HBO boxing. Ward had been on there, obviously. But, of course, you guys remember Micky Ward. A lot of times he was on Friday Night Fights on ESPN. But it was just a special event. Anyway, majority decision win by Micky Ward. And that was seen as controversial by some. He did score a knockdown in the 9th round off a left hook to the body that still hurts looking at it today. I watched that round again today. I think I tweeted it, and I was just like, holy shit. How does a human being get up from that shot? I mean, just the balls of Arturo Gatti, the toughness. But Gatti was deducted at points by referee Frank Cappuccino in the 4th round for a low blow. So those 2 points ended up costing him the fight. And one judge, Frank Lombardi, did have it a draw, 94-94. That's how I had it. That's how Harold Letterman had it. Basically 6 rounds to 4 for Gatti. You could even make an argument for 7, but you could also make an argument 5-5, and that would be enough for Ward to win. I think the whole HBO crew had it for Gatti, which really isn't surprising. But look at the punch numbers, man. Gatti, 350 punches landed out of 779, lands 45% of his overall punches. I'm not talking power punches. I'm talking total punches. 45%, okay? He landed 60% of his power punches. That tells you the type of fight this was. 296 power punches for Gatti. Now, Ward landed only 268 punches, but he landed 49% of his overall punches. So, again, that's crazy. He landed 225% or 225 power punches, 55%. So both of these guys couldn't miss, right? They were blocking punches with their face all night. I think Gatti did the better work throughout, but the rounds that Ward won, particularly in the second half of the fight, he seemed to win those rounds a little wider, and maybe that's why he gave the impression to some people. I thought the fight was a draw. I thought it was a draw, but no one was mad that Micky Ward got the decision. Nobody. Because, in fact, if you ask most people now about that 3-fight trilogy, most people will remember that Gatti won at least 2 of them. That he won the series right? But most people, I won't say most, a lot of people, particularly casual fans that watch those fights, they can't even tell you who won the first fight or who won the second or third. They just be, oh, Gotti won most of them. That's just all they remember because the first fight was so good, nobody gave a shit about who won and which way the cards went. Gotti won fights 2 and 3, of course. And after the series, as I mentioned before, Micky Ward retired after the third fight in 2003. These two fought 3 times in 13 months. The first and third fights were the fight of the year. And Gotti, after the 3-fight series with Ward, went on to have 7 more fights. I think he fought on far too long. He went 4 and 3 in that span. And he had a bad loss to Floyd Mayweather in 2005. Had no business being in the ring with Floyd at that point. But that was a brand-building exercise for Floyd. Believe it or not, guys, at that time in 2005, Arturo Gatti was the A side in that fight. Imagine, if you will, Arturo Gatti was the A side in 2005 when him and Floyd Mayweather fought. So he retired, Gatti did, in 2007. He was murdered 2 years later, and it brought into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2013. So one thing that I thought about as I was thinking about this thing today, and I knew I was going to talk about it here on the show, one question I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm going to ask Ken this later on, what differences would there be if those 3 fights happened now in the age of Twitter? Interesting to think about, right? As much as there would be this, it'd break the internet to a certain degree. All the GIFs, all the videos or GIFs, I don't know, however you pronounce it, videos that people would be sending of the fight. Let's just take the first one, the one that happened 18 years ago today. If that fight had just happened, right? Number one, it wouldn't be on HBO. It'd probably be on DAZN or ESPN or Fox but it wasn't pay-per-view. So let's just imagine that it's on one of those platforms. How would Twitter react? Now, there would be positive, good stuff, right, from a lot of people saying, oh, man, what a great fight, blah, blah, blah. But you know damn well, unfortunately, with the age we live in, there would be a group of people out there trashing the fight, saying, oh, this was skillless, just limited brawlers, this just slugging away. This was, a barroom brawl, a backyard brawl, bum fights, all that sort of stuff. You'd see that on Twitter. Believe it or not, you would see that. And I say that because I remember, I was too young. I wasn't ringside. I wasn't covering boxing yet back for this fight. But I was ringside for several fights of the year. And one of them that stands out to me is, of course, Orlando Salido, Francisco Vargas. And I remember going on Twitter, I'm there at that fight. Everyone there is thinking, this is amazing, right? Everyone's having an amazing time witnessing such a great fight. But then I go on Twitter, and particularly the following week, when some of the haters who didn't watch it live, watched it Sunday night, whatever, the replay. And I saw the reaction Monday, and I saw there's a group of people, including not just on Twitter, but I saw some YouTube videos calling that fight trash and saying this was just 2 skillless bums, with no skills, beating the shit out of each other. And I thought, man, what is wrong with people? Number one, there's plenty of skill in that fight. But number two, can't you just accept something great? And it just got me thinking about this one. I tell you right now, man, if this fight between Gatti and Ward happened today, there would be a group of people on Twitter calling it shit, calling it an overrated, crappy fight, and there would be a bunch of people making YouTube videos. Number one, there'd be a bunch of YouTube videos doing the slow motion thing, trying to make it look like one guy won more than the other did, all that stuff. But then there'd be a bunch of people on there calling it shit and, dissing it. I'm telling you right now, man, that's just the way these things go on Twitter these days. It's a shame. It really is a shame. But such is life. Such is life. Okay, about 5 more minutes, and I think Ken Rideout will be calling in. So I see one of you guys is on the phone right now. If you got something, just call back in about 20 minutes or so. All right, give us some time on the phone lines, guys. Call back in about 15, 20 minutes, and we'll get the questions going. But let's see, what else? I definitely want to talk More. Oh, I see Jack. Oh, Jack, yeah, call back. Give me about 20 minutes or so, brother, because Ken should be calling in here any minute. So go ahead and jump off the line and call back a little bit later on, man. All right. Let's see. We're going to talk more about Gatti-Ward, obviously, because it needs to be talked about. It should never, never be forgotten. But let's talk about some actual kind of news. I guess this is kind of boxing news. Top Rank planning a card for June. Now, nothing's official. We don't have anything officially on the schedule yet, but apparently they're going to have a card in June. And then they're also planning a card in July, specifically July 2nd, around the July 4th holiday, obviously, in Las Vegas, featuring Jamel Semperfi Herring, who's a friend to the show, who was on the show just a couple weeks ago. So Jamel obviously knew something was cooking because, as I told you guys on the show, or as he told us, he was going to camp. So once he told me that, I was like, something's in the works. So boxing is coming back, guys. And then Eddie Hearn is talking about doing fights in his backyard. I don't know, man. We'll see how that works. Look, it's crazy times. You got to do what you got to do. I'm not opposed to Eddie Hearn doing fights in his backyard. We'll talk more about that in a second. But for right now, let's get over to the guest hotline. And let's bring our special guest on here, Mr. Ken Rideout. Can you hear me, sir?
Mike, what's up, brother?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. I can't believe that, because we talked over the weekend and we forgot. I did. I know I forgot. That 18 years ago today, Gatti-Ward in Connecticut, bro. 18 years. Can you believe it's been 18 years since that fight?
No, I feel like a dinosaur because I feel like I was old when it happened.
Right? Yeah, man. I mean, well.
Yeah, man.
And then it's crazy because there's been several of these trilogies, right? And like when I think of like Vasquez Marquez, who actually fought 4 times, but I think of that as a trilogy. That feels like it was just a couple years ago. But Showtime just replayed those fights, during lockdown. I'm like, holy shit, it's been a lot longer since those fights. And then I'm thinking, Gatti-Ward, they fought in 2002 and 2003, dude. There are people that were born that year that are just now getting their diploma in the mail, their high school diploma. We're getting old, brother.
I know. It's crazy. Well, and even crazier story, when I first met Micky Ward in 1989, we were both correction officers at the Billerica House of Correction. And I was a big boxing fan back then. I started there maybe a week after I graduated high school, and I was in there. And now I grew up in the inner city in Boston, and as I'm walking in, I know some of the inmates. That wasn't that unusual. I know that might sound crazy to some people, but it is what it is. And then all of a sudden I see Micky Ward, and I'm like, holy shit, dude, Micky Ward works here. At the time he was like, a good fighter, but a club fighter at best.
Right.
So when I ever saw him in 2002, 13 years later on HBO main event against Gotti, my first reaction was like, oh my God, what's Micky doing in there with this kid? This is going to be ugly. And when he ever started putting it on him, I was like, oh my God. It was like one of our own was slaying the dragon. It was just, and I loved Gotti, but my God, watching Micky Ward put it on him in that fight was incredible.
Yeah,
just incredible.
I think one thing that separates that trilogy from other trilogies, because, there have been better trilogies, but usually when you have 3 guys empty the tank like that 3 times, they're usually in their prime. But both Gotti and especially Ward, they were past their prime, bro. Because you think even Gotti, I think it was 2001, he lost to Oscar De La Hoya, and that was just a quick payday. He had no business being in the ring with Oscar. But before that, I want to say 98, 99, he had a few losses there. He had been beat up. And, Micky was on the tail end of his career. So the fact that those 3 guys at that stage of their career could do what they did, that to me is what separates that trilogy from the others. What stands out to you from that trilogy?
Man, the only thing I can think about when what I just described when I think about those guys is just what nice guys they were, and the image of those 2 in the hospital room. I think maybe after the 3rd fight where they're both in the ER and the doctor pulls back the curtains and they're both laying on stretchers and they're like in the ER bays next to each other. That's what I think about, because people know about the fight, but not a lot about. I mean, people have spoken about it, but not as much as I think it deserves to be heard. Is how bad Micky was hurt after that third fight. I mean, he had I think a detached retina.
Yeah.
He would wake up and sometimes his vision would be flipped. He'd be seeing things upside down. They had to do a surgery to tighten the muscle behind his eye that connects to his brain. I mean, really, really like severe injuries, like serious shit.
Yeah.
And that he's dealt with for a long time. But, while the fight's going on, I mean, you would have had to kill him to get him to stop, literally. I mean, it was just and the image of Dickie Eklund in the corner and giving him instructions, just knowing about, because again, when I met Micky the first time, me and Micky were guards. Dickie was an inmate at the same time.
Yeah,
and
it was like, right. Holy shit, bro! I didn't think
seeing
about it
them
like
both,
that.
Oh, dude, that place was crazy. Whenever I talk to my friends from Boston now, we laugh about it because, thank God, this didn't happen while I was there. But shortly after I stopped working there, I moved to New York and started working in finance. My brother ended up being an inmate there, like Micky's, and it was like, like a family affair, business as usual for the kind of the area where we both grew up.
It's
looking back on it now, obviously it seems crazy.
No, I can relate. It's very similar to what I grew up in Detroit. It was a similar kind of thing where a lot of the guys in the neighborhood, my friends, half of them went to jail. A portion of them went to the military. If you're one of the guys lucky to kind of get out of that, and break out of that working class upbringing and break out, like we've both done well for ourselves. Looking back, you're like, holy shit, how did I survive some of those things? And just things that we thought were normal, right? Because you probably thought it was normal seeing Micky Ward there and then seeing Dickie where he was and seeing how some of those things played out over the years. But now I'm sure you look back, you're like, dude, that ain't normal. Like most people don't experience that growing up, right?
Yeah, no, and listen, I always make a point to say, it doesn't make you tougher or more tough or less tough. It is what it is. This is just what happened, and I wouldn't wish this on my children for any amount of money. I wouldn't want them to see those things. But when it's happening to you, it's just like you don't know any different. So it's not like, oh my God, I'm living in this very dangerous place, and it wasn't like that. It was just I probably had the same mindset my own kids have, but instead of me, yelling at them for leaving their bike on the sidewalk, it's my parents yelling at me because someone stole my bike. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
dude, I saw these kids. It was that reminds me. There was I was actually talking to my mom the other day about this. But there was like 4 kids, big high school kids, that stole my little sister's bike, and my ma, no shoes on, ran down the fucking street chasing after them. Screaming, chasing after him with like a spatula. Give me back that bike, motherfucker. She was screaming all kinds of stuff. And the 4 kids gave up the bike. Now it was 4 dudes. They could have done anything they wanted, and they gave up the bike. It's just because my mom probably came off as this crazy person running down the street. It's 20 degrees outside or some shit with no shoes on, screaming at these kids. And now it's just funny, like. My fiance, she grew up completely opposite of that. She grew up in the suburbs of San Diego. So when I tell her stories like that, she's like, that sounds like a fucking movie. And I'm like, nah, that's pretty much just what happened all the time. That's just normal shit. Anyway. See, there's 2 old guys reminiscing, everybody. But you know what?
Yeah.
You being from Massachusetts, I know that you probably thought Ward won that first fight. Do you think?
I thought he won all of them.
You thought he won all of them. Shit. All right, no bias at all, ladies and gentlemen. No bias at all. Look, I thought the first fight was a draw. Now, do you think I'm crazy, or could you say reasonably that within reason somebody could score that first fight a draw?
I mean, all of that. Boxing scoring is so subjective. Like, you could easily make a case for a lot of close rounds where you like this work better, a little bit better than his work here. So, like, to me, arguing over close rounds is like arguing over art or like the Academy Awards. Like, I thought that movie was dog shit. I wouldn't watch that if you paid me, but it won every award. Like, there's always situations where it's like, people's interpretation of things are different. And so when you're dealing with like judging on a subjective basis, like gymnastics, boxing, not to compare the two, but I'm saying a lot of times you'll have discrepancies in judging. So I try not to get too emotional about that. I do get pissed if my guy doesn't win, but look, could you make an argument? I'm sure you probably could. I thought that Micky definitely won the first one. But you know, unless that's why they always say, don't leave it to the judges and there won't be any debate.
That's true. That's very, very true, my friend. So being from Mass, I got to ask you about this, non-boxing related. And we'll get to your background in boxing and all that stuff. But Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Dead to me.
No shit. Dead to you? Really?
Bye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
You serious,
Dead
bro?
To me.
So okay, so you're not going to become a Bucs fan next year?
Serious. Not a chance. I never root for any other team other than Boston.
Damn. Well, okay.
Not a chance.
So, because I know you're a Tom Brady guy.
If my kids play for the Buccaneers, I'll be all over the Buccaneers and hate everyone else. But unless my kids are on the team, I'm rooting for Boston.
Okay, well let's just
say I love Brady on the Patriots, but going to the Buccaneers, come on, man.
Well, that's why I didn't know, because I know you guys from Boston, from that area, are hardcore about your teams. But now that he went to the Bucs, okay, and now they got Gronk apparently. If the Bucs make it to the Super Bowl, right? Are you going to watch? Are you going to pull for him, or are you rooting against them because he left?
I probably wouldn't root against him. I certainly wouldn't be out there rooting for him. I guess it would depend what the line on the game was, and if I bet on the game, you know, I would support whoever I bet on. But I definitely won't be supporting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not a chance in hell.
Wow, man, you Boston guys are hardcore. All right, let's. I wanted to ask you about. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but just every guest on the show, I asked them the latest and greatest news with the COVID situation. Now, you live in a part of the country where I used to live. I was not in quite the same neighborhood. You live in beautiful Pacific Palisades. I was in K-Town, but same area. And I know that they extended the lockdown through July, I think, through the end of July. So, but you were telling me you went out the other day and you saw people at the beaches and stuff like that, right? So are people pretty much ignoring the lockdown, or what's the situation there?
I would say that everyone was obeying all orders until the last probably, I would say, 5 days. So on Saturday, I went out and rode my bike through Malibu, like all over the place, like 65 miles. And so I saw a lot of stuff. And the roads were as busy as ever with motorcycles, people out joyriding through those mountain roads. On the weekends, they're busy. And in previous weeks, I've been up there and it was dead. Then I went down to the beach riding along PCH, and the parking lots are closed, so you could only get so many people on the beach because you'd have to park and walk. And I mean, you know, after, you know, a few hundred cars, you're miles away. Not many people are walking miles to get there. So, but I would say that the beaches were as crowded as they could be with the parking, without having parking available. And then yesterday I actually took my kids to the beach. I drove them down, dropped them, went and parked the car far away, and then ran back to get the car to go pick them up when we left. But it was like, I don't know, maybe 50% capacity at the beach, but only because of the parking. But if there was parking available, it would be sellout, looking like Memorial Day weekend. I think COVID fatigue in LA has kicked in, and people are like, nah, I'm not having this anymore. I'm taking my chances.
Yeah, bro. I think it's nationwide. I think people are just starting to get fatigued by it. Tiffany and I went out this weekend. We saw a bunch of people out, and people weren't being stupid. You know, they were being smart. But we went to a couple restaurants. The waiters were wearing the masks and all that stuff, and the tables were like 10 feet apart. So as far as look, man, at some point you got to go out and live your life. You got to be careful. But I just feel this energy in the air of fatigue setting in. It actually surprises me, but it doesn't surprise me that people in California are telling Gavin Newsom to fuck off. I think it's great, personally, because I know I have too many friends that I know who have already lost their business. I know several people, particularly in LA, that have lost their small business already, and that is terrible, man. So a lot of these people, they put decades into it. So, I don't know. I don't want to get in a political rant.
Yeah, no, look, I think it's a tragedy what's happening. I think that the powers that be were trying to do the right thing, and I think that they did initially, but now you're starting to realize, like, dude, we can't.
Right.
First of all, the U.S. government can't buy the U.S. economy for several months. It's not realistic, and I think that now everyone knows what to expect. The hospitals are prepared. They've got ventilators all over the place. I think that knowing the risks involved in people social distancing, even when they're out and about, I think that you'll start to see these things loosening up massively. But again, this is just my opinion. What the hell do I know?
Yeah.
But I get the sense people are over it. I think that the residual effects of, like, I was telling my wife the other day, can you imagine people like dealing with like domestic abuse issues or depression issues or something? Because I've been dude. Addiction issues. I don't even know what like junkies are doing. How are they going out and like, what are they doing? All of a sudden you're locked in your house with withdrawals.
Well, someone think of the junkies. Someone think of the junkies.
Hey, I'm always looking out for everybody.
Hey, everybody deserves their, to be looked out for. All right. You talked about biking for 65 miles, which is fucking nuts, by the way. But, you're an endurance athlete, so you do this all the time. You do that shit in your sleep, practically. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you do marathons, triathlons. When did you get into that? And have you done any boxing training specifically?
Yeah, so when I played football and hockey in high school and college. I was never very good, like jack of all trades, master of none, but I played quarterback in high school and college. And then in high school, I started boxing. I went to the Somerville Boxing Club just to like stay busy. When I moved to New York after I graduated from college, I boxed for a little while for the New York Athletic Club. But again, like jack of all trades, master of none. I could look like almost as good as Mike Tyson hitting the mitts until someone started throwing back at me, and then everything just went out the window.
Okay. So it's most guys on Instagram, basically.
Exactly. You see, when someone has no experience and someone starts throwing at them, the first thing they do is their eyes go down, their head goes down, and I'm like, no, he's clearly never sparred before. Mm-hmm. But so maybe when I was like in my mid 30s, I was always active and into fitness, but started running a little. My legs I started having knee problems, so I bought a bike and I started riding with some guys that worked with me, and they were like talking about how good they were on the bike and they were really into it. And I started riding with them, and I was like, man, I must be pretty good at this. Either that or these guys are terrible, because like I'm smashing them. And then I just started getting into biking and running. I eventually was introduced to Lance Armstrong, who I became friendly with. I did some training with him. And I was like, very quickly, as soon as I got the bike, I was like, oh, I want to try and do a race, like and a triathlon. I don't know how I came to triathlon. I didn't know how to swim, so I went into the New York Athletic Club. And like everything, when people are like, how'd you get into this? How'd you get into that? I'm like, dude, if you're asking those questions, like you're already like a step behind. I never asked anyone, how do I do this? I just went to the pool, saw someone who knew what they looked like. They knew what they were doing. I was like, dude, can you just watch me swim down to the end and tell me like a couple things I'm doing wrong? And that was it. And then I just started swimming every day, just enough to get through that portion of the race. And I did, I just signed up for a couple Ironmans, and after like the second or third one, I qualified for the race in Hawaii, the one that's on TV every year in October. Yeah, and that was super competitive because there's like 2,000 people in the race, but I don't know, 100,000 plus try to qualify for that race every year. So I ended up doing that thing 3 times, and through doing that, I was obviously running a lot, and in the last 5 years ish. I was like, man, I think I'm a better runner than cyclist. So I started focusing a little more on running, and then started running some competitive races, like signing up for half marathons and stuff. And in the last year, I won the Malibu half marathon, Pasadena half marathon, a few other ones. And I ran a 2:28 marathon in Sacramento at this California International Marathon in December.
Nice.
And that's it.
Yeah, man, we were scheduled, me and my fiance were supposed to do the Nashville Marathon this spring.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I heard it's really beautiful, and it's a good one to do. And I haven't done any running like that since I was in the Marine Corps, but she had done the LA half marathon. So we were going to do that, and then idiots had to eat bats, so we all got fucked. So we're scheduled to do it next year. So well, I'll let you know how I do. Hopefully my knees hold up. But man, how did you get hooked up with Teddy Atlas? Like how far back do you guys go?
Yeah, good question. So I have a really good friend, Rob Moore, who's the produces that show and basically acts as Teddy's manager. So Rob and I have been doing triathlon and running together for years, and that's how I met him. And coincidentally, just as an FYI, like that's how the majority of the business relationships that I have, most of them, the really good relationships stemmed from endurance sports. Like we will, all the relationships I have, like, were developed through interest in endurance, running and triathlon. And my buddy Rob Moore was a PR guy at Edelman, which is a big PR firm in New York, like big international company. And he was working on the Samsung account when their phones were blowing up and stuff. Like really seasoned dude, went to Vandy. So I had coincidentally introduced him to Mike Lee, the light heavyweight fighter who lived out here in LA, had the good story, went to Notre Dame, was a pitchman for Subway, sandwiches and all that. And I was like, yo, do you have a PR guy? My man Rob just left Edelman. He's doing some freelance stuff. He's got some really good relationships in this sports space. And they started working together just for a few months. And through working with Mike and his dad, John Lee, they introduced him to Teddy, and Teddy was like in need of some management and help with a few things. So Rob started working with Teddy and asked me if I'd be interested in doing a show with Teddy. And I was like, are you kidding? I would do anything to be, hell yeah, let's do it. So we had lunch together. We hit it off and said, all right, let's give it a crack. So we just started recording the show together. And yeah, we like, I mean, he's literally like a best friend / father figure at times. I mean, it's like really a cool relationship. He's just a super nice guy. Like, contrary to what you see on TV, he's like he's two different people, first of all.
I completely agree.
Camp,
yeah.
He's just like my man. If I called him, and like, as an example, when we first started working together, I wasn't sure like how connected he was with the promoters and stuff, which I later come to find out he's not like necessarily biggest fans of some of the boxing insiders per se. But so I called him and was like, yo, you have any connections to get tickets to, like, maybe it was Canelo Jacobs? And he was like, instead of just saying like, nah, I don't want to call in favors like that. I don't do that. He was like, oh, let me see what I can do, and just bought tickets and sent them to me, unbeknownst to me at the time.
Wow.
But then I later find out that he bought them, instead of just saying, no, I got no hookup for that. Because I would never ask him, can you buy me a ticket?
Right.
But that's the kind of guy he is. Just like, yeah, I got you. Here's the tickets. They'll be at your house tomorrow. And I was like, oh, great, thanks. And then only later did it occur to me, like, did I realize, oh, shit, he bought these. Oh, my God, now I'm embarrassed. But that's the kind of guy he is. He's just like, he's not going to say no. But so at the same time, when you tell him you're going to do, if you tell him you're going to do something and you don't, he's not one of those guys that's just going to let it go and it's going to be uncomfortable. He's going to call you up and be like, hey, I got to talk to you about something. And it's going to be truth.
Oh, yeah, Teddy will do that. He'll go on those rants. I guess stance on Teddy, I don't know what the right word is, but when I describe Teddy, I tell people that sometimes it seems to me that he's playing it up on the camera, because I've only talked to him once, very briefly, off camera, and he was so quiet. And there was a card in, I want to say it was Ontario, Riverside. It was somewhere in the Inland Empire, and it was around, I don't know if it was Memorial Day or it was a holiday. There was a card themed around the military. And, through talking to him after the event, I told him I was in the Marine Corps. And he basically complimented me. And he said, thank you for what you did for this country. And, said it in this very low keel, even keel kind of way. And it's like, wow, what a cool guy, like Teddy Atlas, saying that to me. I'm just some fucking boxing writer that was just getting started on the beat. He didn't know me from anything. So him saying that, taking that extra moment just to say something like that to me, it made a real big impression. It was like, wow, what a nice guy. But I want to ask you, Ken, do you think that sometimes on camera he's playing it up a little bit? Like there's a Teddy Atlas character for the public and then a Teddy Atlas, the real guy?
I wouldn't say that he's playing it up. I would say he's probably a little more animated because he also realizes like business is business. And if you want to be on there calling fights, no one's looking for someone to just come on and be robotic. I think that the things that, but none of it is scripted. Like what you see is his real emotions. Like when he gets upset about like bad decisions, bad reffing, any injustice, he'll call it out. And he doesn't care about the ramifications. The guy is like, he lives by his own set of principles. And if it means burning bridges to call someone over something, the bridge is on fire. Like there is no gray area. If there is something out of line that he doesn't agree with, even if I were to say to him, like, oh, let's just let this one, no, that's the first step towards like, you know, a crash. Like we don't let anything go. When we were in camp together with Alex Vosdick, just as an example, everything was positive. The only thing we discussed was positive terms, positive tones. Never, ever even discussed the possibility of anything negative. And so on fight night, the cut man was there and he said, oh, let me put some Vaseline in your nose just so, you know, it's dry. Just make sure if you get cracked early, it doesn't bleed. And immediately Teddy's like, no, we're not talking about anything negative. You know, the guy had just, you know, he was there just for the fight, but he said one thing about like, oh, just in case you get cut. And he was immediately like, no. Malcolm, we're not talking about getting cut. We're not talking about it. If it happens, it happens, but we're not going to address that. So it was like, you know,
he sticks to a script. So
it was all business in camp. Yeah. There was nothing nice.
Are you talking about?
I have friends that are like.
Are you talking about Vosdick's camp for the Beterbiev fight?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we were in Philly together for 8 weeks, and I was basically his assistant, and we had a strength coach there, and Chris Camacho, and me, Teddy, and Alex, and just so the four of us were living together in some apartment buildings over near the museums.
Same
and
apartment.
We were training Grace.
You guys were in the same apartment?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say, okay.
Me, that would have been a bit much, just because being together 8 weeks with anyone is a lot. And yeah, man, I was telling people, you know, I have friends that were like, hey, if you guys need anyone to carry the bucket to the ring, I'm like, this is like, would you think that the Patriots would need you for the Super Bowl to like come and you know, carry helmets out there? There's like every step of every day was scripted. There was no room for clowning. It was deadly serious. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it was like a concentration camp. It wasn't. But when it was time to train and meal preparation, workout scheduling, there was no niceties. It was business, like deadly serious business. And especially in the days leading up to the fight, making weight, the day of the fight, every single thing was scripted, and there was no room for levity. It was deadly serious business. And as you could see from the fight, I mean, it was like a lot of ththings can happen in there.
That was a brutal fight, man. I actually thought Vosdick was winning up like 2/3 through that fight. Yeah. And then Beterbiev just found another level. But, you know, Andy Ruiz, you know, there were rumors going around, you know, Andy Ruiz is going to go with the Reynosos now, but there were some rumors saying he was going to train with Teddy. And I was thinking in my mind, he won't last 2 fucking weeks with Teddy, because Teddy won't deal with him saying, hey, man, I'm going to go eat some burgers, you know, or some shit like that in camp. He wouldn't tolerate that.
I can't even begin to tell you how far-fetched that would be. It was like the reason that he works with Alex is because Alex is all in on his career. It's the only thing that matters to him. When we were talking about the camp, we were talking about, should we do it in Big Bear? Should we do it in Philly? And Alex said to me on the phone, because I was helping like kind of coordinate all the logistics. Alex said, Ken, I don't care where it is. I'll live in a basement and eat eggs. I don't care. So do wherever Teddy and you, wherever you guys decide, let's go. Like all business. And the thought of, you know, someone like Andy, and I don't know Andy Ruiz. So maybe in camp, you know, I know he obviously didn't do the right thing in this lead up to the second fight, but who's to say he doesn't get with Teddy and he buys in 100%. So I don't want to speculate and throw Andy under the bus, but I can tell you that there would be no entourage. There would be no dad in camp. There would be no friends. There would be no bullshit whatsoever. Like when we would go to the gym, we locked the door behind us in Graves Ferry, and that place was like, it was a rough place. This was a rough, like, Philly neighborhood. I mean, we locked the door in there. No one was coming in. No one was getting out. And we were the only ones in there during the day when we were there. So I would say to anyone who's considering Teddy as a trainer, like, if you're not all in, don't waste your time, because but if you are, the guy is like an encyclopedia. He's the wizard. I mean, he was seeing things. Everyone thinks it's human nature, right? You think a little, I know this, or I know a little bit about endurance. Nah, he was seeing things that I was like, oh my God, I hadn't even thought about that. And we would watch tape, and we would watch, old fights. And he spent a lot of time on the psychological aspect of the fighting, because he always says that fighting is like 75 to 80% psychological.
Absolutely.
So he spends a lot of time with the fighter. Walking along the river over there and talking about different aspects of the fight. It was intense, and it was quite a learning experience, to say the least.
But yeah, imagine.
Back to your point about Ruiz, is like that it seems a little bit far-fetched, but look, Teddy he's a nice guy. If you say, hey, I want to train with you, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I think maybe they got a taste of like what his response was and what he was expecting from them, and they were like, nah, this is already too much. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. When I first heard that, I was like, get the fuck out of here, because it just wouldn't work. And, Andy, nothing against Andy. It's just Andy has a reputation, and I've spoken with several trainers who have worked with him. I mean, going back to when he was, still with Top Rank, and well before he had fought for a title. And just hearing the things that they say, the guy has a reputation. And I think he could be better with a guy like Teddy. I think if he actually bought all in, Teddy would make him better, but he's just not that guy. He's not going to do it. But, for Gvozdyk, that was you talk about the mentality and just the emotions and all that are involved. That was a very psychological fight. You saw psychology playing out as you watched that fight. What things did you see in that fight where you're thinking, okay, this is starting to turn? Seeing, because you were up front with Gvozdyk for like 8 weeks, right? Is there anything that you just saw in that fight where you're like, ooh, you just kind of knew it was changing, other than the obvious stuff, the physical stuff?
The only thing I can tell you is it's as close to watching, like, I consider him one of my closest friends. Like, after spending that time together and investing that much time of our lives together, to me, it was very similar to like watching one of your kids fight. You're just like, every punch that lands, you're like, oh, come on, man. It's hard to even like think back on it, because it was so, like, I was as devastated for him as he was to lose that fight. It was emotional. I was like, wow, come on. But once that tide started to heavy beyond words, man, beyond words. That I would say, if someone told me this, I'd be like, oh, that's a stretch. But I'm telling you, unless you were there and part of it, it's hard to put into words when you're that close to someone and see that happen to them. It sucked, because I know he was like, he was devastated, as you can imagine. And I was devastated for everyone, for Teddy, for Alex, for his family. It was just like, because look, the kid, he's grinding for everything he has. He doesn't have a PR machine behind him. Top Rank's not out there like, beating the drum about Alex. They were like, oh, we've got 2 champions. Let's put them in together, and whichever one wins, we'll give the push to that guy. And it was kind of like, oh, the implications were huge, and we knew it going into it, but it's hard. It was hard, man. And to your point, like maybe in the when he gets stopped in maybe the 10th round, because he was ahead on 2 of the 3 cards. So it was, I think he got stopped in the 10th, maybe like this. So, maybe like the 2 rounds prior to when he got stopped, you could feel Beterbiev was super strong and was wearing on him and was coming forward. And Alex was doing everything he could to keep him off and keep moving. And that was the game plan, right? To keep moving, keep boxing from the outside, moving the feet, moving around him, keeping him on angles. And when he started to get to him, you were just like, I think we have a small lead. Can we hold on to this? And then, in that last round when he went down the first time, then it was like, again, this is why I would never want to watch my own kids fight, is because as soon as he went down the first time, I'm like, come on, man, just don't. Now, forget about winning. Don't let him get hurt now, because it was obvious that the tide was shifting massively. And, man, that was a tough one. That was a tough experience.
I can only imagine seeing that. It's just people.
Yeah.
The psychology of boxing, and one of the things I love about it is that you could honestly, this is no exaggeration. Your experience in that 8 weeks in Philadelphia with Teddy, with Alex, with the camp, and then the fight itself, you could actually write a book just about that. You could make a movie just about that because there's enough humanity and emotion, ups and downs, every emotion you can have, all in that time frame. That 3 months or whatever total time frame. You could actually make an interesting movie just out of that. And fighters do that shit 2 or 3 times a year. It's just crazy to me that human beings can do what they do. But speaking of
that's
that,
exactly right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off before
ahead.
you could. I was just going to say, speaking of that, we talked about COVID, quarantine, people just getting sick of it, people dying to get back out. People want to get boxing back, and they're talking about boxing coming back in possibly June, July. I want to ask you, when do you think we're going to get some big fights? Just because, people have been asking me that. I think it's probably going to be a while before we have those big Vegas fights where you have a crowd, that could bring a large gate that those fighters' purses demand. Are we going to get Wilder Fury 3 this year? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that there's a handful of the fighters that are like, look, business is business, but like we got to fight because even half a normal purse is better than a zero. And look, it's human nature. The more money you make, the more you spend. So the people that would think like, I don't know, make up someone, XYZ fighter who made $1 million his last fight, he's good. Well, he made $1 million, but the manager got 20%, the trainer got 10%, he got taxed. He didn't have $1 million. If the guy bought a house, he might be like have a mortgage. And my point is like, they're employees too. They got to keep working. So I think there's also a handful of guys out there, like the vast majority of them, they want to fight. So I don't think you'll get the huge marquee matchups, although I'd love to see it. But I also think that Dana White did boxing a bit of a favor in terms of putting out a roadmap of how to get something done. And look, you can pick apart a million things but at the end of the day, you can pick apart things that he did wrong and things that he did right. But look, he did it. He put on 3 shows in a week. And I can tell you that like those were the 3 happiest TV viewing moments I've had since this shit kicked off. I loved it. And I tell you, there were parts about not having fans there that I liked more than having the fans there.
Really?
So I'm indifferent towards the fans. Here, I'll give you a couple examples. Did you watch the Justin Gaethje Tony Ferguson fight?
I didn't see it. I'm not the biggest MMA guy in the world, but I watch it every now and then. But I didn't see it.
Okay, no problem. It was like a stand-up battle. I mean, Gaethje kicked the shit out of him, and Ferguson's on a 12-fight winning streak. It would be like Spence Crawford and one of them beat the shit out of the other one. You'd be like, I didn't see that one-sided beatdown coming. Okay. So they're going at it. And Gaethje has a reputation that once he's ahead, he gets reckless. They called him like the most dangerous man, like some fictional title that they made up. But it was justified. The guy's a nut. And he's also a 2-time All-American wrestler. So when he's punching the shit out of you, you're not just going to take him to the ground because he'll kill you there too. So he had a reputation. He did this against my buddy Dustin Poirier. He gets wild and opens up and gets caught and gets knocked out. And it happened to him twice, Justin and someone else. So because there's no fans, late in the fight, he starts putting it on Ferguson. And his normal tendency would be to then attack. The guy, like, at one point did, like, the wobbly leg thing, and he was like, oh, he's hurt. Instead of jumping on him, you could hear Gaethje's corner saying, don't rush in, calm down, relax. And he got, like, gathered himself. I mean, you could see the guy was wobbling, and instead of rushing in, like 99% of fighters would, he sat back, moved forward, picked him apart, and then eventually stopped him. But another fight that happened is Greg Hardy was in a fight with, I forget the dude's name, DiCarlo or something. And the DiCarlo dude, I think that was his name, was kicking Greg Hardy, the former defensive end for Dallas, was kicking the shit out of his lead leg, just kicking his back of his knee. It was purple. It was all swollen. And because there's no fans, Daniel Cormier, who was calling the fight for the UFC, on the mic, he goes, Greg Hardy better start checking those kicks or he's going to have a real damage to his knee. The next kick the guy throws, Greg Hardy lifts his leg up. The kid's toes smash against Hardy's shin, and he kind of starts hopping around. The guy who threw the kick like it looked like he broke his toes or something, but he clearly was compromised. He didn't throw another kick. Greg Hardy stops him. And after the fight, they said, what happened in that fight? It looked like at some point you checked the kick and he got hurt. He goes, yeah, I heard Daniel Cormier say I better start checking those kicks. So I did it. And boom, but it was like those little things and those big heavyweights, when they went down to the ground, you could hear them breathing. I mean, you would think the guy was hyperventilating the way they were breathing. But to me, all those little like nuances that you wouldn't get with fans or like with Gaethje, the fans would go crazy and almost like hype you into attacking. But it was just like very cerebral and strategic. I appreciated it. I really enjoyed it. If there was pay-per-view UFC every weekend, I'd be there for it.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting because it's like a different wrinkle to it, a different aspect that maybe some fans, I'm used to being in gyms and seeing sparring up close, and there's things that you just see and hear there that you're just not going to see when you watch a fight on TV, and maybe some fans will kind of get a taste of that when they bring these shows back and they're shot in studios. So that's an interesting dynamic that I hadn't thought about. I don't know. Maybe it could work.
I like hearing both corners yelling commands to the fighters and which fighter is, and the fighter's like, I'm wondering, is he listening to that guy? He keeps telling him just throw the overhand right. Is the opponent like ready for that? You know what I mean? I just think it adds a new wrinkle. And like, okay, some of the like pre and post fight shit, you get the crowd. It's hype. I get it. That part was missing, but the end of the fight when there was like a stoppage or a knockout or a submission and then just dead silence and one guy's on the ground, like on this past Saturday, Walt Harris fought the kid who his daughter was abducted and murdered in Alabama earlier in the year. He fought in the main event. Unfortunately, he lost, and Alistair Overeem tuned him up. But right after the fight, so the kid's down on the ground, and you could see Alistair Overeem kind of like hugging him down on it, like, dude, come on, man, you all right? Sorry about that. And he's like, yeah, it's just all business. And I don't know. That to me, it was like added an element that you don't normally get. And I like I said, I didn't miss not having a crowd there. I could live with this for the foreseeable future. And so I think that if they get these fights going again, you're going to see like positive response from the fans. I think
the diehard fans are going to like it. I think that it'll be something interesting and different. There's like, it's an anomaly. So people are attracted to the anomaly. And that will be fun for a while. But down the line, 3-4 months down the line, they're going to start to miss the crowd noise because, just like we talked about with the first Gatti-Ward fight, a big part of that fight. Now, look, you can watch that fight with no fucking sound and it's amazing. But that crowd, because that was basically Micky's backyard, right? It was like 100 miles south of Lowell. So there were so many Micky Ward fans in the crowd. And when he dropped Arturo in that 9th round, they fucking lost it. And that made it so much more fun. But I'm with you, man, because I think diehard fans that appreciate all those little nuances of hearing a corner. As a guy who's sparred and stuff, I could tell you, sometimes, if it's real quiet in the gym and I can hear the other fighter's corner, sometimes I'm listening to what he's saying too. I'm not just listening to my corner. And there's been times where I've heard the other corner's direction and I know what to prepare for. I know what the dude's going to, bring at me. So that's an interesting kind of element that, maybe it's going to add something that we haven't seen in a while. So, you know what? I like that. That's a positive way to look at this because I've heard some people, just kind of shitting on the idea of coming back with no fans. And I think it's better than nothing. And I think it'll be good for the fighters to get busy and make some money. I just hope that we could get some big matchups at least toward the end of this year in the fourth quarter. We shall see. But I'm just thinking, man. I'm looking at all my questions here. I told you I'd only keep you for like 20 minutes. We've been talking for almost 40 minutes. I'm sorry about that. It's just, once we get going, it's good stuff. But... I'm in
quarantine, dude. I got all the time in the world for you.
There you go. Well, you know what? I'm just, we kind of hit everything I wanted to hit, man. The one thing I forgot to ask you about, what do you think about all this Mike Tyson shit? Obviously Mike Tyson's not coming back. He's not going to fight a top heavyweight. The last time he did fight, 15 years ago or whatever it was, he was beat by a journeyman. But this dude brings out some social media videos of him, doing some punch combinations on the mitts, and it blows up the internet. and everyone's talking about this shit. What does that say about Mike Tyson, man? He's still a huge brand.
Huge. He's a huge brand, but yeah, just like you said, I mean, last time out, Kevin McBride was tuning him up. But look, I mean, he brings out fans. People are curious about him. He seems like a different person these days. He seems much more relaxed. Hey, good luck to him. Like you said, I don't think that he's going to be fighting anyone of note. And if he puts on an exhibition fight and for pay-per-view or whatever, good luck to him. I don't really think about it much in terms of boxing. It's more like a curiosity factor for people that are like super fans of Tyson.
Yeah, it's more like just the entertainment kind of thing. I wonder if those videos would have broke the internet the same way if we weren't having a global lockdown. You know, I wonder about that.
I don't know if they would have had as big an impact, but I think whatever he does is so topical and people just like he's an anomaly. When he was on top, people were just like, oh my God, this guy is like the most feared man or the baddest man on the planet, which now I think that title should probably go to the UFC heavyweight champ since,
really,
you know, in a street fight, who you want to be? You want to be the guy
you're going to pull out that
take
one.
You down on the ground and like maul you.
Well, hey, if the guy knocks you out before he can tackle you and maul you, then I'm taking that guy. That debate,
that's very true.
That's just going to be like the Michael Jordan, LeBron James debate, baby. That's just going to go on to the end of time. Although I think there's no debate there. It's MJ. But all right, you know what?
One thing about that, though, I gotta give huge credit though to James Toney. Of all the shit talking back and forth between MMA fighters and boxers, that's one guy who was like, yeah, let's go. I'll fight anyone. I'll fight you whatever style you want. And got in there with Randy Couture and had a go at it. And I give Tony a ton of credit because you only have to spend like one training session with a wrestler or a jiu-jitsu guy on the ground to realize like, oh my God, I'm out of my element. Just like if you took a wrestler and put him in the ring with James Toney with boxing gloves, the guy wouldn't land a shot and might get murdered. So, but credit to Tony was just like, yeah, I don't care. Let's go. I'll take my chances that I can catch you with a punch.
You're so right about that. You're so right about that. Because, you know, we haven't seen many boxers go in that direction. And he did at one point, and I do give him props for that. And, you know, look, the whole UFC versus boxing thing, that always goes. And I tell people all the time, it's two different sports. And if two guys fight and they have two different martial arts, it's going to be the guy who's better at his martial art who's going to win. You know, a great wrestler is going to beat a novice boxer in a street fight. A great boxer is going to beat a novice kickboxer in a street fight. That's just how it goes. But people love to just argue this shit so much. But I was going to ask you, man, please tell everybody where they can follow you on Twitter and follow the podcast, because now I see the podcast has a Twitter profile as well.
Yeah, it's The Fight with Teddy Alice. I think our Twitter handle is The Fight WTA.
Oh, yeah. WTA. I got it backwards.
It's at The Fight WTA. And you can follow me at, K Rideout 12. And on Instagram is Ken Rideout 12. I post more stuff probably on Instagram, but that's more about my kids and stuff.
Yeah, you're a wonderful family, man. 3 boys, 1 girl.
Oh, thanks, man.
Beautiful, beautiful family. I love it. So,
yeah, thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So, dude, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. I'll let you go and stay safe out there. And let's do it again soon. And maybe one of these days, I don't know, you guys don't take calls or anything, but maybe one day we could do a cross-promotional thing or something, and I can get on your pod or something like that.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, brother. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ken Rideout. Awesome chat, man. Awesome chat. Awesome guy. Just a really, really awesome guy. You guys, you know, follow him on Twitter, but definitely on Instagram. He shares a lot of stuff. And this dude is jacked. Like, I think I'm in pretty good shape for my age. Ken's jacked because this dude literally bikes 60 miles at a time and stuff. He's crazy. So I'm trying to be more like him when I grow up. But anyway, if you guys have any calls, get them in now, and we'll go ahead and chat real quick. If not, then we will log off here. But I hope you guys enjoyed that, man. And look, I actually posted a poll on Twitter, I think it was last week, or maybe over the weekend, whatever it was. And I asked you guys out there, in the Twitter world, are you listening to more, less, or about the same podcasts? I saw a lot of you guys were saying that I'm listening, you're listening to less podcasts because there ain't shit to talk about right now. I agree with that to an extent. However, go back and listen to this interview again. I think that was pretty fun and interesting, and we hit a bunch of different subjects. So look, guys, there's always something to talk about. What I try to give you here is something different than everyone else is doing, because I think everyone else in the world is doing the same old mythical matchup bullshit, which can be fun. Don't get me wrong. I ain't shitting on it. I do mythical matchups too. But I think there could be fatigue from that because everyone's doing it, right? So hopefully you guys found that as fun. Let's go to the phones here. I think this is Jack. Let me check here. 773, you're on TNC. Go.
Great interview with Ken. I got a bone to pick with you, though. I mean, how do you not watch these UFC fights when there's nothing else on? I mean, what else are you doing? What else are you watching? You got to tune in that UFC fights. Huge card, UFC 249, the only sporting event in the last 2 months, and you didn't watch it?
I'm a terrible human being, right? You know what, dude? I was probably working on the house, doing something on the house. I've been completely gutting. I have a hill in my backyard, and I took a bobcat and cleared all that out, flattened it out. I've moved over 300 stones from the back to the front. I've done all kinds of shit. I've been ripping roots out of the ground because there's some bamboo in my backyard. I'm not going to bore you to death with that shit. But that's probably what I was doing, bro. Most nights, that's from like 6 o'clock to like 9 o'clock. That's what I've been doing the last few weeks. The UFC thing, the 249, I would have watched that if it wasn't pay-per-view. But that shit was on pay-per-view, man. And I'm just not a big UFC guy. I'm just not going to spend that money on something I don't watch that much.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Got to take care of the yard work, got to take care of the house, and it is true. There's a big pay-per-view price is no joke. How much? Like $60, $70. So,
well, it's better than the boxing pay-per-view, right? Because what is UFC, Jack? Is it like $60? Do you remember? Are they $60? Those? I think we lost Jack. Jack. Oh, here you go. You lost. You dropped for a second, but I hear you now.
Oh yeah, I think it's like I don't know. I usually order the free streams. I usually find a way on the internet to do it the ghetto version. But when it's a big card, I usually pay the $60. Usually like $69.99, $59.99. But anyway, I'll get away with the UFC talk. I want to talk about this Mike Tyson because it's getting kind of absurd. Like, all right, if Mike Tyson wants to come back, stick him in the ring with Filip Hrgović. Let's see if he really wants to come back, because I'm sick of this old dudes trying to act like they can box. And
hey, I'm an old dude who acts like I can box. What are you trying to say, man?
Well, box, really box.
Yeah, really box. Level. Yeah, not fake boxing like me. Yeah, I hear you, man.
Because it's just like, you had your time. You had your time. Your time has passed. Sports is a young man's sport. Sports are for there's people in their physical prime. 50-year-old men should not be boxing. So if he really wants to do it, let's stick him in there with the young, hungry contender, and let's see if we can do it, because I don't want to do these little sideshow exhibition matches, this and that, because it's a joke. It takes away. Even at least Conor McGregor was in his prime, and he was at the peak of his physical prime, and people say he got washed and this and that, but I just feel like when it comes to like 55-year-old men, it's absurd. But I'll leave it at that.
Hey, man, you're a sadist, Jack. Look, I'll say this, Jack. If he comes back and he does an exhibition, even if it's him and Holyfield, I'm not too comfortable with Holyfield doing it. But if Tyson came back and did an exhibition or something, and he put it on pay-per-view and people wanted to buy it, good for them. It's just like when Floyd and Conor fought. Like, I knew what that was. That was a scripted fight. It was a gentleman's agreement. But I wasn't hating on nobody if they wanted to buy that fight. I just kind of knew what the outcome was going to be. You know what I'm saying? So, look, it's all entertainment. I'm with you in the respect that, I get it. He's had his time and this, that, the other. But Tyson's still a brand. And when he posts videos of him doing mitt work and it blows up the internet, it does get people talking about boxing. And it's not them talking about two YouTubers fighting, fucking Logan Paul or some shit. They're talking about an actual OG. So if something could, let me ask you this, dude. Let's say Tyson fights in an exhibition match and it's the main event, but on the undercard, you got Devin Haney fighting, or, I don't know, I'm just Jaime Munguia, whoever it is. I'm just trying to think of names. And you have some active guys fighting on the undercard. I wouldn't mind it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, dude. It doesn't bother me that much. I just think it's funny when people think, could he come back and win a title? Like, dude, are you serious? No. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a cash grab. That's what it seems like to me. But it feels like the only difference between the Conor McGregor fight, at least Conor McGregor is not going to get hurt, because Floyd Mayweather, he's not going to hurt him. He's not going to knock him out. I feel like with these old guys, they can get hurt. They can get hurt and put out.
No, I agree on that. Now, if that's your beef, then I'm 100% with you. Mike Tyson has all of his faculties, and he's in pretty good shape. Evander Holyfield, I'm not that comfortable with him training. But I'll tell you, I saw James Toney, post a video on social saying now he wants to come back. That, he should never be sanctioned to fight again. He has irreparable damage. So, I'm with you on that. This ain't basketball. We ain't shooting hoops here. So I'm with you on that, Jack.
Well, the difference is he may be in good shape, but what's his chin like? What's his brain like? What's his ability to take a shot? Because that's really what the difference makes. He may be able to hit punch hard and this and that. The power's the last thing to go, but what happens when someone clips him on the chin, gets knocked out and bangs his head against the back of the canvas? That's really when you got a problem. But anyways, this is coming from Chicago, not Jack.
I thought it was Jack, dude. Oh, my bad, dude.
No. Oh, no.
Because I didn't recognize the area code. I appreciate your call, man.
No doubt. Take it easy.
You too, brother. Yeah, because I thought you were because Jack called in earlier. I'm sorry about that, bro. Real quick, I got super chats. I saw Pietro with the super chat earlier. Thank you very, very much, Pietro. And we just had a super chat from Trent. Thank you so much, Trent. And he asked, is Caleb Plant the best at 168? I know him and Justin Gamber trained with Uzbeks, but could he handle Bully Beck? Right now, he could handle Bully Beck because he's just more seasoned. Right now, as far as who I'd rate number one, at 168, it's tough, dude. I think the best fighter, like if they were all fighting each other in a tournament this weekend, I'd probably take Benavidez. I just think he has the most upside and just the right amount of seasoning, upside, power, aggression, everything right now. Caleb Plant, right there. Callum Smith, right there. Beck, he's going to be there real soon, and he'll be maybe the top guy in a couple more years. He just needs a little more seasoning. But Caleb Plant, I wouldn't count him out against anybody. It's just his best win so far. I'm trying to think. It was Uzcategui, right? Uzcategui, who I think might have been a little overrated. Was kind of a boogeyman guy, but seen as a boogeyman type of guy. But I think he might have been a little overrated. And I just want to see Caleb get in there against a guy that we know is legit. And maybe if he gets in there against a guy like a Benavidez or Callum Smith, whoever, and he shows us another level that we haven't seen yet because he hasn't had to go there. He hasn't been pulled, to where he had to really, really dig down. So maybe there's more to him. Just based on what I've seen so far, I'd say I'd pick Benavidez head-to-head. In terms of who's the most accomplished so far, I think it's Callum Smith because Callum Smith won the tournament a couple years ago. He hasn't done a damn thing since, and he got a gift in one of his defenses, but technically speaking, undefeated, won the tournament. So he's kind of the top guy right now in terms of accomplishments. But Johnny Boy in the chat says, I've been saying Plant Benavidez should fight, and the winner should get a crack at Canelo, but we got politics between it. Yeah, I agree with you, bro. Look, Plant Benavidez, that has been discussed. I'll tell you right now, it's very possible for 2021. It's something that has been discussed, but it will be pay-per-view. If and when it happens, it'll be pay-per-view. Is that a pay-per-view worthy fight in terms of those guys, their star power? Hell no. But in terms of the quality of the matchup, hey, any matchup like that you're going to get on PBC, that's going to be Fox pay-per-view from now on. That's their business plan. So love it or hate it, that's what they're going to do. Me personally, pay-per-view or not, I just want to see those fights get made. You know what I'm saying? And Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez, I think that's an awesome matchup. I'd love to see that. Would love to see it. Let's jump to the phones here. I apologize to that last caller, dude. I thought you were Jack because he called earlier. All right, 353, you're on the neutral corner. Go.
Yo, how's it going?
What's up? I thought that was you, Mark. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Everybody hit the like button. It helps promote the growth and visibility of all channels.
Absolutely.
So I got in because I came off my own thing. And Iron Mike, I heard that was the last thing that was being discussed. I'm cool with him coming back for an exhibition against somebody, whether it's an old fighter or nobody, like myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hey, I'll take it. They want to pay me $1 million. Yeah, shit.
I'll officially throw my name into the ring. I'll fight Mike Tyson. I'll probably end up being injured, but I'll fight him. Now, let him come back and do an exhibition. But the people who are out there saying, Mike's going to come back and he's going to become the youngest and oldest undisputed champion in heavyweight history. Whoa. Calm down. They're forgetting. They're looking at Mike Tyson back when he was fighting Tony Tucker. You know, right. They're not looking at the guy who last time he was in a professional ring with Kevin McBride, he's spitting out his own blood.
Yep. And you know what? Even let me ask you this. I don't mean to be sacrilegious here, but even the prime Mike Tyson, the guy who was fighting Tony Tucker, are we 100% sure he beats Tyson Fury? I'm not.
I'm not 100% sure. No, I never am on fantasy fights. But what I will say is, during his time, and you know this yourself, for that brief moment, he looked unstoppable for 2 years. Like nothing could ever touch this dude. He did look that way based on what he was fighting for a brief period, you know? Mm-hmm. He looked unbelievable. Like this small guy who moves that fast, closes the ring off that good. Did he go on to really solidify that with his resume? No, and there's a lot of different reasons people can bring into it, but he never fully did. But he was incredible for 2-3 years. He was the dude. He in 3 years he amassed a following that rivals Muhammad Ali.
I agree. In terms of his brand, I think he was bigger than Ali. You know what I'm saying? Like Ali was more popular for his political activist beliefs and all that. Of course, his fighting. Of course, I don't want to discount that. But Tyson, just in terms of his star power in media, you can make an argument, and I've said this a million times, he's the biggest star in the history of boxing. One of the biggest stars in the history of sports, period.
You can make that claim. I don't know. Just because I think every boxing fan nowadays knows the names, right?
Yeah.
They know both brands. And if you go back, more people throughout the history of life know who Ali is more than Tyson just because he was around earlier.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
But at the same point, more people know who Jesus is than know Michael Jackson because he was around for it. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good point. And he didn't touch little boys.
But still.
That's beside the point.
Oh, I wasn't making a comparison like that.
I know.
That's, holy, oh, God.
Well, somebody in the comment section was going to do that. He compared Jesus to Mike. So, yeah. I'm
talking fame. I'm talking no names. Michael Jackson at one point was as famous as Jesus on planet Earth.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
At one point. But yeah, I'm cool with Tyson coming back, having an exhibition, a one-off, and I love your idea there, by the way. Get some of these prospects on there who need a name boost. Get him to headline a card in a pay-per-view thing or whatever. Maybe he fights 4 or 6 rounds. Who cares? It's Mike Tyson. They get to relive old memories, you know?
Exactly.
They get to relive certain things that they're enamored with. You go back, you watch it, he fights against whoever, and then throw on a lot of people and they get a bump because their name is attached to Mike Tyson, you know?
If they want to really make this a freak show, like a complete freak show, take an old wrestler or an old MMA guy who's around the same age, so it could be another one of these crossover things. It could be like Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, the elderly version. Do that in the main event, and then put on some of these young guys.
How about this?
Yeah.
How about this? I'm sure you'll watch it. I'll watch it. How about we get Mike Tyson in an exhibition fight with Dwayne Johnson?
Oh, shit. That would blow up.
That could be the biggest selling pay-per-view ever.
Yeah, dude. That, like, a 5-round boxing match, you know, and because Dwayne Johnson is still young enough, people would think, oh, it's competitive. He could beat Tyson. I still think Tyson would win.
He's athletic. He's big. He's strong.
Yeah. Tyson would beat him in a boxing match, but that would be fun as hell. It'd be a freak show. People would watch it. And then again, if you did it the right way and you put a few prospects on the card, or, you know, young guys, contenders, young champions, whatever, that need that PR, it could be big. Will that happen? Fuck no. They're going to put him in there against a cab driver. You know, and there would be no undercard. That's going to be what it is.
Well, I'm not a cab driver, but I'll take the fight. That
Yeah,
Mike Tyson, I'll take it. Mike, will you take the fight?
Hell yeah, I'll take the fight. I'm not taking that fight for $1,000, but they want to give me some life-changing money. I'll get my ass beat by an old Mike Tyson. Sign me up.
If it's on pay-per-view, I'll do it for $300K.
Shit, $300K? That's life-changing money. I'm never going to see that money.
It is.
So yeah, make it
Where
happen.
Where I'm from, I can get 3 houses for that money.
Yeah, shit. Probably could do that here in Atlanta. Well, Atlanta's changing now because assholes like me are moving from the big cities and coming here and jacking up the rates here. Yeah, they don't, you know, dicks like me from LA and New York are ruining Atlanta is what everyone keeps telling me. Anyway.
Anyway, let me just ask you a quick question before I go, right? Is Bob Arum telling the truth on this Teofimo and Loma thing that's taking place in September, or is he bullshitting with us just to marinate?
No, they're serious about it. There's serious legs there. So it could happen. I think they realize that if it doesn't happen at the end of this year, that fight's probably not going to happen. So even if they have to go out of their pocket a little bit more and everything else, I think that they want to try to do it. It is possible. And I think the hope is, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, just about boxing coming back. No promoter is going to just do a big fight. They want to have a couple of, you know, market samplers. And that's what's going to happen in June, July, August with Top Rank. They're going to do these little cards. You're going to see Jamel Herring fighting. Who's he going to fight? It's Okendo. He's going to fight.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to fight Jonathan Okendo. You know, it's going to be that level of matchup. But they test the market, and then maybe in September they can do something. So we'll see. It's possible.
Shakur is fighting, isn't he? Shakur's fighting Rafael Rivera.
They're talking about that
that's
too.
What they're looking at?
Yeah. I don't like
right.
Nothing's like solidified yet, but that's probably what you're going to get.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Yeah, man. You too, brother. All right, we got one more call here, and then we'll wrap it up, guys. 818, you're on TNC. Go. 818.
What up, Mike? This is Carlos.
Oh, what's up, Carlos? How you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. You know what? I was on social media, man, and I saw a little bit of a post. It was in regards to a possible fight between Jojo Diaz and Abner Mares, man. I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I've heard about that too. That's being discussed as well. You know, for a brand building type of thing, that's a good matchup for Diaz. that would do numbers in LA. People would show up and watch that. If they put it at the right venue, the right date, I think it'd do well. I really, really do.
Yeah, same here, man. But I think JoJo is a little bit more settled in at 130. Obviously,
Yeah.
I feel after his long in the tooth, he's been worn down. I feel even though JoJo doesn't have that much power, I feel he can take out Mares in the late round.
I completely agree. I just saw Johnny Boy in the chat said the same thing. Yeah, I think he'd be too much for him right now. But Mares, with all his experience, his skills, that's going to be a competitive fight in the first half. And then that's where I think like youth will kind of take over in the second half. But that's why I go back to like brand building. In terms of brand building, that's
Definitely.
a great matchup for Diaz.
Definitely agree, man. I feel 130 is one of the more overrated divisions, man. Like underrated divisions. I feel a potential fight between JoJo and then what's his name, Burchelt. That would be great. I honestly feel too that Burchelt can actually. I know you touched on it a couple podcasts ago. I feel you think Herring would outbox Burchelt, but I don't know, man. I feel that the power and the volume of Burchelt would be too much. I don't know if that's something that.
Yeah, I agree that that's absolutely possible. Like, I favor Herring, by close decision, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Burchelt win that fight. But, I think that Herring's style would give Burchelt a lot of problems. That's why I favor him. But it's going to be a damn close competitive fight either way. And, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Burchelt beat anybody at 130. He's a very good fighter. Yeah.
I honestly feel he's the best at 130. And I would die for a match between Burchelt and Loma, man. I think Loma should not go up to 140. I know there was rumors about that, but I'd rather him drop down to 130 and fight. I mean, Burchelt would be great, or a rematch with Gary Russell would be a good fight. I feel those divisions are really hot divisions right now.
Yeah, I think there's more options at 130 for Loma, and there's fights that are makeable. I mean, let's just say it's not out of the realm of possibility that, let's say Diaz and Mares fight and Diaz wins, and Loma ends up moving back down to 130. Those two could fight. They could fight because, Golden Boy and Top Rank, they've worked together in the past. You talked about Burchelt, even Herring. Herring's with Top Rank. So there are all sorts of possibilities if Loma goes down. If he stays at 35, there's not as many possibilities. At 40, I just think that's too heavy. He's a natural featherweight. So I think, and they've talked about that. His team has talked about going down. It's possible that happens next year, that he goes down a weight after the fight with Lopez.
See, for Herring, I feel like a rematch with Lamont Roach, that would be a good fight. I think Roach, I honestly think he learned a lot from that fight, so I feel that would be a great fight.
Yeah, and those two have a history. They know each other, so I think that's why the fight was competitive. And I think that if they fought again, it'd be interesting to see what kind of adjustments. It might be the same thing again, though. It might be another really close, competitive fight that surprises people. But, I mean, dude, there's so many great matchups that could be made right around, really from 26 to 30, 35. It's just, particularly with the younger guys, they got to fight each other, man. And I hope that happens,
Definitely, especially in my eyes, Ryan Garcia at 135. I feel he needs to start fighting somebody, man. He's calling out, making a lot of noise on social media, man. But in all honesty, he hasn't really fought anybody. I just want to see him face a live body, man. I feel Luke Campbell right now. He's probably more proven than him, and he's probably more proven than what's his name? Haney, who's just
definitely.
I don't know, he's making noise on social media, but I feel Luke would, at this point, I feel he has a good shot at beating both of them.
Well, Luke's just got more experience. Luke's been in with everybody. So, he's lost against the very best guys, but there's no shame in that. He's got more experience. That he would be a great step-up opponent for one of those guys at some point. But, Ryan Garcia is supposed to fight Jorge Linares next. Even though Linares is past his best, I'd still love to see that fight. That'd be a good step-up fight for him. Of the four pups, as I call them, at 135, all four of those young dudes, The one that has the worst resume right now is Devin Haney. And I like Devin Haney. He might be the best out of the four one day, but he just hasn't fought nobody yet. And hopefully that changes soon.
Definitely agree, man. Definitely agree. All right, man. Well, thank you for taking the call, man. I really do appreciate it. Best of luck, man.
All right. Have a good night, brother. We got one more here. 447. You're on the show.
Hello, Mike. How's it going? It's me, Hamid.
Hey, man. What's up, man?
Yeah, I just called in. I didn't have many really related to any boxing news questions as for right now, but I had a couple. I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of things from the past. I was wondering, how did you score the Mayweather-Maidana fight? I think that was on the other night on Showtime.
The first one? So the first one,
yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of people out there that said that Maidana won that fight. I disagree. I thought it was close, but I think I had it like 7-5 for Floyd, maybe 8-4 for Floyd. I thought it was close, but I thought Floyd won that fight clearly. Close, but clearly won.
Yeah. Do you think that was closer than the De La Hoya fight? Because I think I thought the same. I really liked the De La Hoya fight. I don't think that was as close as I initially thought.
That's a good question. Honestly, dude, I haven't seen the Mayweather-De La Hoya fight in a long time. And I might, before I answer that question, I might have to go back and watch that one again. When I scored that fight live, I think I had it like 7-5 for Floyd. Maybe 8-4, kind of in the same range, but I would have to watch. I've seen the Maidana fight recently because, like you said, they've replayed it, but I haven't seen the Mayweather-De La Hoya. I'd have to watch that one again. I remember that. I was just going to say, I remember that fight being close in the first half, and then De La Hoya just stopped jabbing, and Floyd kind of figured him out. But it really showed me that a prime De La Hoya may have beat Floyd.
Yeah, I had the 8-4 live. I thought De La Hoya.
Okay.
I could have arguably got a draw, but I think De La Hoya, he just slowed down. He completely. Yeah. What's the word? He completely faded in the second half of that fight, and he stopped jabbing. I think he lost that fight. That was a fight I don't think he could claim a robbery or argue about. I thought Maidana did a bit more better than him because I think in the Maidana-Mayweather fight, Mayweather was cut, and I think he was losing that fight after about 7-8 rounds. I think after that, Mayweather just pulled away. I was going to say, do you reckon that Pacquiao in 2009-10 would have beaten him? I think after Pacquiao beat Cotto, I changed my prediction. I initially thought Mayweather was too big for him, but after that fight, I thought Pacquiao's work rate was too much. I just couldn't see how Mayweather would have kept him off.
Pacquiao in 2008, 2009, 2010, right around there, those were really, it was this absolute peak. And 140, I think he only had one fight at 140, but to me, that was his best weight. 147 was a little too heavy for him, even though he has great wins at 147. But I always say the most competitive version of a fight between Mayweather and Pacquiao you could make is right around 2010 or maybe 2008, something like that, 140 pounds. Even at 147, that's a pick'em fight. I absolutely think Pacquiao would have been a nightmare for Floyd at that time. And he weighed him out just enough. And you could see if you watch that fight. I mean, Floyd boxed beautifully in the fight with Pacquiao. He did. He had some advantages going into that fight. And Manny you could clearly see he had lost a step. Just was not the same guy. And, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the Pacquiao that fought Cotto, Margarito, style-wise, I think he was all wrong for Hatton, De La Hoya as well. He was all wrong for Mayweather. At the same time, I do think Mayweather himself was towards the end of his career as well. Because I know they were both old in that fight. I know Mayweather's style with the age does probably not affect his style as much, but at the same time, the work rate for both guys was very bad in that fight. Although in their primes, I think I would have to favor Pacquiao. I don't think it would be a knockout, but it'd probably be, I think, somewhere where I could see maybe Pacquiao scoring a knockdown and getting sort of competitive decision.
That's exactly how I see it. I think it was this fight with Mosley where Pacquiao dropped Mosley early, and then Mosley kind of played it a little safe and, really, really minded his defense after that. And that fight was kind of dull going down the stretch, but Pacquiao clearly won. I think a fight with Floyd obviously would have been more competitive, but I think Pacquiao probably could have scored a flash knockdown, early in that fight against Floyd if they fought at their absolute best. I really do think that, and I think that Manny would have eked out a close decision.
Yeah. Before I go, I just want to say, is Dan Rafael now working for Ring Magazine? Because I think I seen him post something that he wrote the article. Or is that just something which was a one-off?
Probably a one-off. He might contribute every now and then and submit an article or something like that. Because Ring we have a dedicated team of regular contributors, but then we have people that drop in every now and then and do a piece. So something like that might happen every now and then, but I haven't been told about him becoming like a regular contributor at all.
All right, that's okay. All right, thanks for doing what you've done. It's good to speak to you. Catch you soon.
Absolutely. Have a good night, man.
All right, you too.
All right. So that is it for the calls for tonight. So we can get the outro music going here. Oh, there it is. Good show, guys. Appreciate it. And thank you for all the callers, everybody who watched live. And again, won't be going on next Monday, but the Monday after that. So next time I talk to you guys here on TNC, it will be June. And hopefully we'll be a little more opened up in the world. And I'm over this lockdown shit. I think you guys are too. It's just, we got the fatigue. Anyway, guys, take care of each other. Enjoy your holiday weekend. And sooner or later, I'll see you at the fights.